Diversity stays. Alex Goldstein was an angry man this day. His divorce from his wife Darlene was a messy affair. Still, he wanted to make amends. For just over 14 years they were married, mostly enjoying happy times together. Yet one night of enticement and lust slipped into his life. Thus Alex had strayed. He fell to his weakness for an old girlfriend. Now, riding on a train southbound to New Orleans, he cursed himself for ruining a long and loving relationship over a sordid one-night stand. Alex was hateful. Hateful of himself and hateful of what he'd done. In his hand he held the last thing that she left behind. An old stained map. "Excuse me, sir." He heard something from behind, and he mocked it. "Excuse me, sir," Alex interrupted a train conductor as he walked past the narrow innards of the cars. "I understand we'll be passing a town called New Haven soon. Can you make sure to announce it when we get there? I don't usually travel this far from the city, and I just want to make sure we don't pass it up." "New Haven, you say? We don't have that on our town agenda. It sounds vaguely familiar, but we never stopped there. Leastwise, this train never stopped there for, well, probably over 60 years now," the conductor explained. "My grandfather used to tell me weird stuff about that place. All antique houses and grassy fields with some, some strange folk therein to boot." "But you do have to stop there, right?" "Actually, no. We never stop in New Haven." "What? But why? I have it right here on this train schedule," Alex asked in puzzlement. "That schedule is very outdated, sir. We simply never stop, we never stop there. Never," the bald conductor said. "I don't understand. If this train passes directly through it, why can't I get off there?" Alex demanded. "It's very, very rural, sir. Some say it's practically a ghost town. Nobody ever wants to get off in New Haven. I'm sorry, sir, but you'll just have to give that idea up." Alex was enraged by the smugness and defiance of the once polite conductor. But instead of letting his anger rise, he offered a tempting bribe to the man, pulling two $50 bills from his wallet. Alex inquired again. "Maybe this time you can stop at that town. You see, it's very important that I get there," Alex bribed. The conductor took the money in a quick and greedy sleight of hand. "Well, sir, I'm not really allowed to stop there, but I could slow the train down enough. Enough that a certain desperate person, if they wanted, they could jump right on out from in between the cars, and hell, I'm sure even a conductor with bad vision such as myself wouldn't notice." And just like that, the bald conductor waddled away on his old legs, leaving Alex to consider his indirect proposal. Alex began to remember things about his life and his wife then. When Darlene left, he felt a powerful sense of regret. He wanted her back now more than ever. Alex knew he had to get to her, and in order to do that, he'd have to get to this place. But this was beginning to get harder by the moment. If she resided in the old town, he'd have to make his way past to New Haven, and do so quickly since the Civil War era station was slowly starting to come into his view. "Man, I hope this guy knows what he's talking about," Alex muttered. "I'd hate to have wasted $100 on my precious time just to get stuck in some boondock, nowhere known town. Nobody's ever heard of this place." Alex was a prominent lawyer from Manhattan. He grew up in New York's tough ghetto among the region dubbed often as Hell's Kitchen. He was smart and rugged, and he prided himself in taking his streetwise ethics and transforming them into an intellectual advantage. But as he peered out of the slowing train, he saw a very different world. He didn't see the rush of roaring cars, or the flicker of city lights, or even the cursing catcalls of hoodlums and streetwalkers. No, this was a really rural place. Its only boasts were far separated farmhouses, wide cornfields, and quaint pink houses that looked like they were ripped straight from a suburban magazine of the 1950s. Damn, if I'm going to do this, I have to do this now, before the train starts speeding up again, he whispered to himself. In a cool, nonchalant gait, Alex got up and headed towards the exit of his compartment car. But suddenly, an old woman's hand caught his shoulder. Alex turned back, stunned that the old lady grasped him so hard. However, she said nothing, and only nodded her head sideways in a very distinct and clear no-no gesture. Hey, let go of me, lady, Alex spat. A few seconds later, he brushed off the woman's grip and headed into the space between the train's car compartments. Now he could see the moving ground taking on less of a blur as the train slowed down, stopping as much as the conductor dared it to. Then, with a bracing leap, Alex jumped off the train and landed into the thick metal beside it. He tumbled a bit as he landed and finally stood up, brushing off bits of grass from his black Armani suit. He was about to complain again, but was stuck curious as he peered over the colonial town that lay resting behind those grand verdant hills. It was a white picket fence community, dressed in colorful pastel shades all too reminiscent of America's glorious past. This place looks like a freaking Norman Rockwell painting, just a bit weathered and moldy, he joked in a nervous tone. Alex took this time, to look about and understand how the world around him had seemed to have changed. Despite a feeling of strong reluctance, Alex treaded north towards the town. A few long moments passed by as he drew closer to a very strange and near rustic Maltic shop. Maltic, he said. I think they meant to write malt shop. Alex kept turning around and looking toward the dilapidated telephone poles and more adamantly at the strange black crows that seemed to follow him during his trek. The ravens in this place, they grow big, Alex remarked, as a dozen or so dreary birds rested eloquently on an extended phone wire. He started to fiddle with a rusty soda pop machine as a petite woman with blazing red hair emerged from the shop ahead. The two of them stared at each other for a long while before anyone spoke. The woman looked oddly familiar. She had the bright red hair that his wife Darlene sported, but her eyes were a richer shade of blue, and her expression was laced with a sort of desolate sorrow. Hello there. I'm new to this place. I just got in. I was wondering if you knew where I could, get off my feet and maybe catch a drink, Alex asked the silent woman. The stunning redhead slowly began to display a very pleasant smile. Her eyes grew wide with excitement as Alex spoke. It was evident that the woman hadn't seen an outsider in quite some time, yet when she spoke, Alex was direly confounded. Pill's car grow town wild in the cat, she blurted rather fluently. What? What did you say? Alex asked in puzzlement. Cool grass on fence poles burn like feathers cracked, she answered. Alex giggled nervously, wondering if he should press the woman further or simply ignore her. Perhaps he simply stumbled onto the village idiot, as beautiful as she was. But then another woman came toward him. She was a tall brunette with her hair in a tight bun and wore vintage cat-like library spectacles. She carried a stack of dusty books in her hand, and she stood there and stopped to watch them both. Stopping to stare at Alex too, She seemed genuinely surprised to see a newcomer in the colonial town. Alex immediately addressed her, figuring the pleasant-looking woman, yet slightly older, would maybe answer more of his inquiries. I was just asking your friend here if there was a bar I could get a drink at. I hope people are allowed to drink here, Alex charmingly jibed. When glasses pull the hay from the tables out, she replied. Excuse me? I don't understand, Alex quipped. Roll paste near the cave wall. Flies still bred from the motor car sleeping, she answered. Alex let out a wide smile, and a laughter erupted from his face, and he giggled hard. Is this some kind of joke? Maybe a prank you folks play on visitors that come here? The two women looked at each other in serious concern, and then the redhead waved about her arms in frustration, clearly trying to communicate with him. The dolls on Mars smell pink and pretty. Hold your face to blue sun and jelly, she said, while pointing to a run-down shack of a pub still seemingly forcing a happy grin on her face. Alex was taken aback by the insistent rants of gibberish that the two girls recited out of maybe fear, paranoia, curious, maybe they were still joking. He just nodded his head to the women and walked away to the old pub. But once there, he noticed something out of place. A tall stack of baseballs were set alongside the grimy window of the bar. They did not fall over by the warm winds that swept through the queer town. He also took note that every single door in this place, every single door, was weird. He'd seen the village and seen that it was adorned with 3 handles in a triangular pattern. He noticed this first at the malt shop, but he took a far keener observation of this oddity while scanning the giant homes he passed by. For some of the houses were far too large to be normal. In addition, another ominous factor about the town was bothering him. Although he saw plenty of people tending their gardens and walking about the cobblestone streets, the town seemed completely devoid of any children. Still, Alex didn't allow that fact to dissuade him. For all he knew, the children could all be in school, though he failed to spy anything that even remotely looked like a school. Alex finally entered the smoky barroom and saw 4 older men tending to their beer mugs. He sat down next to a bearded man with slanting eyes and waited for the waitress to cater to him. I'd like a beer and a shot of rum, Alex ordered. The waitress didn't speak. The blonde woman poured a big mug of beer and handed over a clear glass of rum. It was evident that she clearly understood him, so Alex started to ask her questions regarding the whereabouts of his wife. Hey, listen, I was wondering if you knew a woman named Darlene Goldstein. The young barmaid's eyes widened at the mention of Darlene's name, and she began to answer as if she knew exactly to whom he spoke of. Yet again, her words made no sense. How perfect can angels be? Wings flap when eating beloved wives. Alex turned to the bearded man. Hey, can you help me understand what this means? I mean, what is all this stuff? He pleaded. Bohemian girlies pull gold wheat from the heartland, he answered. I don't understand these riddles. What's going on in this place? Alex answered in a nervous panic. He took a shot of rum and chased it down with a big gulp of cold beer. To his surprise, the liquor was quite tasty. He looked over his shoulder and he seen the barmaid, and then he saw a huge photograph of green pastures, and below it read a familiar set of words. Wait, those words are Romanian. Darlene is a gypsy woman. She told me her family was a nomadic people from Romania, traveling gypsy folk. Maybe this is what all this gibberish is about. Some kind of ritual or folklore. Is that why we can't communicate? Alex asked. The barmaid just looked at him with wide eyes in confusion. Happiness and love lure bugs. The hunting spiders sow gold in crystal cornfields, the blonde barmaid gladly explained in her strange accent, that all of New Haven's inhabitants seemed to possess. It was an accent he couldn't identify, but it was certainly the same one that his wife often displayed when she got excited about something. This time Alex was truly spooked. He realized that this was no prank. Although he direly wanted to reach Marlene? Charlene? Darlene? Wait a minute. He almost forgot his wife's name. Whatever it was, the sheer bizarre nature of this aged town and its peculiar folk were way too much for Alex to cope with. Okay, man. Okay, I'm leaving this crazy place. If I can't get normal English from you people, I might as well just go, Alex barked rudely. To his surprise, the patrons of the bar seemed upset by his remark, and the barmaid put up her hands, gesturing for him to stay. They don't want you to go, and neither do I, a soft voice echoed from him. Alex turned around to see Darlene standing next to him. His eyes were so watery, and an ominous black liquid was still sweeping, leaping, treeping, whatever the words were. It seemed that it was leaking from one of her nostrils. Once again, he couldn't concentrate. He couldn't concentrate on words and images for a few seconds. This was because his wife was near to him, but he didn't know why. She kept a tissue to it, trying to stop the perplexing bleeding. Alex was startled to see her so close to him without any warning of her presence. He stuttered, trying to figure out just what to say first. Darlene, I thought you were, gosh, I'm very glad to see you. I thought I lost you forever. Listen, I'm so very, very, very sorry about what happened back in New York. I wanted you to know. There's no need to apologize. I forgive you, my husband, Darlene said as she cut him off in mid-sentence. Alex was speechless now. He looked about and saw that the people in the pub were all wearing warm smiles, seemingly enjoying the reunion of the two lovers before them. But that's when Alex noticed they weren't exactly right. You see, like Darlene, a black gooey liquid appeared to seep from their faces. The bearded man dripped a slow trickle of the dark goo from his ears, while the pretty young barmaid seeped a tiny stream of the black inky fluid from the corner of her left eye. What is going on? What was going on here? Were these people victims of some contagious pandemic? Was that the reason why the train never stopped here? Alex wrestled with these concerns as his wife gingerly caressed his hand. I missed you so much. My apartment is upstairs from here. It's quiet there. We really need to talk, Alex. Darlene's room was comfortable. Upstairs it was more quiet as well. But it was adorned in oddities as well. The light sockets were fixed on the side of the wall instead of the ceiling, and her old-fashioned radio was screwed to the floor, and then another part of it was screwed to the wall upside down. He didn't make much of it. We have lots to talk about, and I'm sure you have many questions. But at the moment, I'm not feeling too well. I just need to freshen up, and maybe we can catch up some, and I'll answer all your questions. Is that fair enough? Darlene asked in a submissive tone. Sure. I really need to know why the people here are so damn weird, though. I mean, are they all gypsies? Are they all speaking different languages? I mean, why are the fixtures all screwed up all around here? I don't understand. Darlene stood silent for a long moment, considering her next words carefully. Gosh, how can I say this? They aren't Romanian or gypsy folk. They simply haven't spoken English for a very, very long time. As for the weird fixtures, well, we place things in a way that are most comfortable to us. And they're nervous. The birds here are often something we worry about. And, well, we sometimes get nervous about what others think of us. Alex was startled. Why would you folks give a crap about what birds think of you? Alex quipped impatiently. Darlene, I love you. You know that. But something strange is going on here. She lifted a wide and wonderful smile, now standing intimate and close to Alex. He viewed her form lovingly, relishing in her paranormal beauty like a thirsty man near an oasis. Darlene dabbed the tissue near the corner of her eye, where a small river of inky fluid began to spill. Concerned about her, Alex quickly put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Are you all right, babe? I saw that liquid black stuff on the other folks in town. It's nothing to be concerned about, Alex. We're just suffering from a temporary ailment. We, I need to be with you. Look, nothing else matters. We need to bear children. I need to have children. Please wait here while I freshen up some. I'll be fine enough then to give you a tour of the town, and we can catch up on old times. You would like that, husband." Alex was shocked for a second. He couldn't understand why she was acting so bizarre. Some of the things didn't make sense. What did she mean by children? Was she talking about having children? "Yes, I'd like that very much, Darlene." Alex responded as his wife entered the small bathroom and very gingerly slipped into a bathtub, and she closed the door. But Alex was scared and nervous, although he wasn't quite sure why. There was an aura about Darlene that seemed different. Really different somehow. Yet Alex felt incredibly drawn to her, far more now than when they were ever married. This induced a strong curiosity in him, and Alex mischievously sneaked into the bathroom corridor, and then he opened the bathroom door a little slice, as it were, and he could see through that little crack something upsetting. He saw Darlene's form sitting peacefully in a wide bathtub. But something was wrong, terribly wrong. The water in the tub was filled with steaming black ooze. Her long hair flipped to the side and revealed a set of super elongated backbones that stuck out from her vertebra in chilling spikes. Although he was certain she could not see him, Alex instinctively placed his hands over his mouth to stifle a scream of pure horror. "This is all wrong. Oh my God, what am I seeing?" he whispered to himself. Alex ran for the door, but just as he placed his fist on the three-pronged door handle, Darlene grabbed him and spun her frightened husband around. She stood before him naked, still beautiful, with jiggling breasts and thick lips aimed at his own. Yet her back was sprouting a wicked-looking assemblage of blackened backbones. In fact, much of her back and shoulders were decorated with the glossy sable chandelier-esque growths. Even so, they somehow added to her obscene sense of beauty, and that's when Alex fell. He fell right into his wife's arms, while she uttered the demanding sentence. "I told you, Alex, you can't leave us. Diversity stays." 57 years later, Carol Fennick was a stubborn teenage girl with a bad attitude and an even worse temper. Her arguments with her parents sent her on a runaway mission, and the 17-year-old suddenly found herself far from the farmland home. She saw a town in the distance shrouded by a curious pink mist. "That must be the place. That place must be near the train stop," she muttered. "I'll get to it, and I'll leave my dumb mom and dad for good. I'm going to make it in the city. They'll see. They'll all see." Carol got to the malt shop and saw Alex Goldstein resting on a rocking chair in front of the place. It was a strange place. She called it the place because it was the only place that she had seen in that rustic field. If she had known him, she would have realized that the man hadn't aged a day since his visit to New Haven 57 years ago. But that was a secret he kept to himself. "Hey man, do you have a train station around here?" Carol asked while popping bubblegum and standing near a sassy pose. Alex stood up, his eyes broadened in a welcoming stance. As he smiled deliriously, he answered the best he could. After all, the town rarely ever got visitors, and one rule of their kind was evident: diversity stays. Well, what's wrong, mister? Why aren't you talking, man? What, the cat's got your tongue? She prodded. Misty water needs blue milk, Alex answered. The fields spin golden bees. What the hell are you talking about, you creep? Carol barked. While Alex stooped closer to her, she saw his right eye leaking a shining black liquid. Half paralyzed in shock, her own eyes widened in stark fear. And that was just before she screamed.